Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Indie Artist Music Hustle with Blonde Intelligence. I'm your host, Miss Ronnie, where I always seek to give you exquisite cranial repertoire. This week, we have a very special guest. All the way from Kansas City, we have Bella Vertigo Wave. Did I get it right?
Belle and the Vertigo Waves.
Yeah. Well, what we're going to do is take over and let you tell everyone a little bit about yourself since I already messed up the name.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're a rock band from Kansas City. We have been playing as a full band for about 3 or 4 years now.
Probably as a full band, yeah.
Yeah. I started off under the name Belle and the Vertigo Waves in 2017, but I was a solo artist, and so it was kind of like, I'll give it a band name and then hope that I can find the band later, right? So I put that record out in 2017, and over the years got a band together, and we've been playing together since about 2019, I would say. And yeah.
The current iteration, I would say, is 2019. A lot of us in the band started out as basically like we were hired guns for her first record. When she first started, it was kind of a little bit more like, would you say, like alt pop kind of singer-songwriter sort of a thing?
Yeah.
And John, who is our lead guitar player, and myself were two of the members that she hired essentially just to be the musicians to record her songs for her. And then midway through the recording process, Belle pulled me aside at one point and was like, hey, we should like actually start a band. And I was like, aren't we already like in a band? Because the process of everything went so well that it was kind of like, yeah, this is like already happening.
Yeah.
And then during COVID, basically, so Belle and I have been living together for about 3 years?
4 years.
4 years.
Almost.
She knows our anniversaries and all that stuff. So,
What?
Are y'all a couple?
Yeah. Yeah, that has its own share of interesting. It's hard sometimes to know which hat I'm supposed to wear. Am I her coworker? Am I her producer? Am I her boyfriend? There's a lot of there's probably an hour worth of stuff we go into there, but yeah.
We started dating probably like 6 months into playing music together, I think.
Yeah.
The timelines are blurry, but yeah.
Yeah. And so during COVID, that was when we had started working on our new record, which was more of a collaborative with the band as opposed to members kind of just playing stuff that she wrote on her own. Mm-hmm. So a lot more influences, a lot more production for sure. And we found a usage for the last 18 months of everything kind of being closed off. I spent countless hours writing in here. She's the lyrical genius, and so she takes a lot of the stuff that I do and puts words to it, and then we throw hundreds of demos at the band, and then we compile everything up together. So
yeah.
Okay. So what is your genre? Because I've interviewed several different bands, and each band still has a genre. People don't automatically assume that it's rock. So what type of genre?
It's the hardest question to answer because, yeah, you're right. Rock could be a lot of different things. I think we all have a lot of different influences. There's, we have some like 80s, sort of like 80s pop influences and some 90s grunge influences. Mm-hmm. And, we've had some people say, like, your band sounds like if Taylor Swift was in a metal band or if Lady Gaga collabed with Metallica.
Yeah.
Kind of a, pot of a lot of, it's a mixture of a lot of different things going on. But.
Yeah, I think the distinction that we have is that generationally there's even kind of a big distinction because, like, I'm about 10 years older than Belle, so I'm way more of a 90s kid. But Belle is like an old soul, so she grew up listening to like The Cure and like 70s, 80s kind of, pop punk type stuff. John is like an old head, so all of his stuff is like 80s heavy metal. And then our other guitarist and Elliot, they're a little bit more modern. Like Zach likes a lot more like progressive, heavy production stuff. Elliot's like he likes a lot of hip hop stuff, so a lot of his drumming kind of fits in there. So the best that I've ever heard it summed up is we're your parents' favorite band. That's kind of, I would say if we had to classify it, it would be like pop glam metal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So y'all have 5 members?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that you told me that you had been working under the name since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So, how long did it take for you to get the last member?
Jesus. Oh, can we swear, by the way, on this before I get a little crazy?
I mean, hey, do you?
Okay. Good to be careful. Okay.
I mean, probably.
2017 is when my album came out.
Yeah.
2019 is when we played Boulevardia. It's a festival in Kansas City. I think.
So 2 years.
I think 2 years, yeah, we've been with the same group of people that feel like the right fit.
Yeah. We've gone through 3 drummers, 2 guitar players, but the core has kind of just been me, you, and John, our lead guitarist.
So do you think that y'all are a unique, eclectic group, or are y'all just, so do you think that because of all the different styles that you name, that's what make y'all eclectic, or, how do you describe yourself?
I think so. I think, like, us learning to sort of feed off of each other's different influences keeps things more interesting and keeps us from feeling like we're trying to imitate one certain sound too closely. I think that, like, our musical differences do kind of come together to create something that's, not too much of like a replica of something that you've heard before, but I'm also not trying to like toot our own horn and be like, we're the most unique thing in this, because obviously that's, not real, but yeah.
It's a weird question to have to ask yourself, because on one hand you don't want to, like, nobody really thinks that they're hot shit, especially if you're like if you're like, really, really kind of in the game. Like, everybody deals with like the imposter syndrome, so it's a weird dynamic of like, you want to kind of sell yourself and be like, we have something that you can't find anywhere else, so buy our record. But also, like, we all kind of struggle with like feeling like, half of the songs on this new record are about feeling like you're a fraud. So but yeah, I would say because of the age range, as far as musical styles, it's kind of a compliment that everyone kind of is like, we don't really know how to describe you.
Yeah.
So, Bella, I want you to tell me about this 2017 album that you did.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to compare it to the latest project. Tell me how you kept your signature sound throughout, from 2017 until now, and how have you evolved?
Wow, okay. So in 2017, when I put that album out, I would have been 19 years old. So a lot of that album was very... What?
What was the name of it?
It's called Aligned. I was going through like a lot with my mental health at the time, and so a lot of it was just kind of sorting through some trauma and trying to figure myself out, and being 19 years old and, learning how to have relationships with people at all and exist in the world. So I think in a lot of ways that album was like processing a lot of things, and it was, and I think now with the album that just came out, it's a lot more self-realized in a lot of ways. I feel like the material, not to say that one is good or bad, it's just the difference. I think in a lot of the songs that I wrote, for on this album. It's a lot more of like discovering who I am and what I really want. And so, yeah, it just feels like a lot more of like a coming of age, like grown up album for me. I don't know. Is there anything that I'm missing there that I've told you about?
I mean, I could give you someone who's been on both sides of like the creative process some observations.
Yeah, creatively, I think I'm very restless when it comes to like artistic things, and I can't really stay put for very long. So when I made the first album, a lot of my influences were a lot more like singer-songwriter type influences, kind of mixed with some like alternative 80s music like The Cure and The Smiths. And then moving into this album was kind of when I tapped into like some of my more like rock influences like Joan Jett, Ozzy Osbourne, and all of that. And so I think when you tap into that different energy lyrically and emotionally, you tap into different things as well and different themes that you're writing about.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question now. I want to know, how have you balanced between boyfriend and producer?
Woo!
And do you think that you serve more of a protector role over her career, being that there's a lot of wolves out there in sheep clothing?
Yeah. So when we first decided to, it's weird. When we first decided to start dating, be together, live together, the whole nine, I was very much more of wearing the boyfriend hat. I think the shift happened, again, not to keep bringing this up, but when COVID, when everything in the midst of COVID, because that was when I took a lot more of a production songwriter role. Actually, I never told you this before. I had a good comparison between your first two records. This is relevant to this.
Okay.
Your first record was Angst. Your second record is Anger, which is like what kind of happens when you grow up.
A little bit, yeah.
So from a production standpoint, that one was more collaborative, which then I became more kind of involved in our baby together, instead of just being like a protector. I mean, let's be honest, like, it's named after her. She's what everybody looks at. I'm kind of riding her coattails. I'm in the back. I'm the one that kind of builds the car. She gets to speed it down the highway, kind of a thing, you know.
I think like that.
No, yeah, I say
Thank
that.
you.
I say that with affection. But the other advantage that I think she has is John, our lead guitarist, is actually her dad.
Okay.
So
in that.
yeah. So I have 3 hats. I have boyfriend. No, 4 hats. Boyfriend, coworker, producer, kind of son-in-law, sort of. So the how do I say this? Sometimes we have to figure out if the conflicts that we are running into are creative or interpersonal.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have a demo. Do you like it? And really the question is, do you like me as a songwriter, as opposed to give me a critical production analysis of this thing versus, I need an encouraging sort of a thing. And it took us basically 2 years to figure that out.
Yeah, we've really had to learn to be very straightforward with each other. Like, anybody comes home from work and, might want to tell their significant other, oh, look at this cool thing I did today, and have them go, oh, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you. You work so hard. But when you come home to your coworker and you're like, look at this thing I made today, you have to be very clear about, do I need boyfriend response or do I need coworker response? And knowing that for myself too has been a big thing, because I think I had to learn, what I needed in the moment. Like, do I need a constructive response here, or do I need to feel like him as my significant other loves and supports me as an artist?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the need is important to being able to communicate it.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me this. This is a question for both of y'all. What made you decide to hire your dad in the band? And did that give you any reservations about, do I want to be a part of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my dad and I have been playing music together since I was about 16 years old. So my dad was in the picture before Jer was really. So when Jer stepped into it, to a degree, he knew what he was getting himself into. My dad and I would play open mics and coffee shops, just like a more stripped down, like acoustic version of what we're doing now. And yeah, so when I went in to make my album, it was a given that my dad was going to play on it because we had been working together. And then after that is when Jer kind of came into the picture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think there were really very many reservations. He and I actually work really well at being able to interpret, from a creative standpoint, sort of Belle's intent behind what she's getting out of the songs that she writes. The running joke he and I always have is we try to play a game of is this song about you or me? So it's like obviously she's going to write about her dad or her boyfriend most of the time.
Ironically, most of the time it's about neither of you,
right.
But not saying it's never happened before.
Yeah. So it's definitely like a language thing that we work really well on. John knows how to bring out a lot more of her melody line stuff into the way that he writes his guitar versus me. I'm kind of a lot more of like the foundational sort of structural. She writes her lyrics primarily off of the things that I structure, and then John knows how to kind of bounce back and forth almost in like a guitar vocal dialogue with her. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool. It really kind of like amplifies what she does, and he and I trust each other enough now that we sort of like know how to stay out of each other's sort of process. Mm-hmm. And then when things come together, then that's when he and I get to really sort of pick stuff apart, and but all of it kind of centers around however you fit into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me, why did you describe the last project as angry?
The most recent one?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my observation, so I can probably...
I've been in therapy for the last 4 years, working through a lot of my own, trauma and everything. And I always viewed anger as a bad thing when I was a teenager, and I was always a person to want to appease and to want to just be whatever anyone wanted me to be, to want to be a chameleon. And as I've worked through some of my trauma and emotions, I've discovered anger in that, and I've discovered the value of it and the good pieces of it. It's something that's important, but needs to be well managed.
Right.
And so I think once I've found more emotional honesty within myself of, not just letting people push me around or not just feeling like I need to be a chameleon all the time, I've gotten to know myself and I've gotten to feel what that anger is. And so with this last record, songwriting was a healthy place for me to channel and process that, because it did feel a little bit like, stereotypical superhero movie where they get their powers for the first time and it's just like chaotic. They don't know how to use their superpowers. Yeah. So I think in a lot of ways, like, songwriting is how I manage that and process it.
Yeah. I would think that there's kind of two sides to this sort of. I'm sure this is probably something you've heard a lot if you've interviewed a lot of other artists, is some people lean really heavily on the side of you just write what you write what has happened to you, and that is like a means of processing whatever. Most relational songs are because it actually happened to you. You're not making up a story. You're actually sort of putting a little bit of yourself into it. And her first record was a lot of death in the family, a lot of like emotional stuff that happened to you when you were like a kid, and that just sort of like a grief kind of a processing. And then most of the songs on this new record were pretty much like, chronologically speaking, were like the next 3 years after that, after all of that was processed out. And given the fact that we were locked inside of a house for like, you know, one point I was like almost 10 months. There's a lot of pent up, you know, seeing what's on the TV every day, seeing like how people are responding to things that are happening. Like, you know, there's so much like, it's everything's happening at such a frenetic pace. I think that's a word. And that's how everything was. Frantic. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and that's kind of like how emotionally it was processed, and even like lyrically, it's very much like, you know, hey, this is how I feel. This is what I wrote, and then you would go, oh, that's how you wrote. This is how it makes me feel, and then I'll say it, and everything was just like, oh yeah, that's exactly, you know. So anger, not like I'm pissed off, but more like, I am describing how I've been feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ownership of feelings.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The therapy description, yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a master's in counseling.
Oh.
Okay, I see.
That would also explain why your questions are good. You're like, you actually want to know. This feels good.
Yeah. So I want you to actually tell me about this latest project. I want you to tell me the name of it, how long it took you to complete it, what distribution you used, and why did you decide to use it, and everything up until the release date. Talk about it.
Okay. So our album is called Lorelai. It came out on May 28th, so it's been a little bit under a month now. The recording process took nearly 2 years because we did write and record throughout COVID, so there were a lot of limitations to the process there. We wrote and recorded from our house, and then took things to the studio. I recorded vocals in a different studio. My dad recorded guitars from his closet in his house. It was a little bit of a like mixture of a process. I've never really it was very new to me, because my whole like method leading up to it was always, you write a song and then you play tons and tons of shows before you record it, so that you know that this is how you want the song to be.
Yeah.
And we obviously didn't have that option to sort of play songs out, to test run them. So it was doing lots of demos and playing them together and really working out the kinks. It was a very different process than I was familiar with leading up to it.
Do you think the project more special?
Honestly, yeah, I do personally. I think for me, the biggest reason was we didn't get the benefit of getting a crowd response to dictate to us whether or not something was going to land, and so we really had to trust our own intuition and how the song made us feel ourselves. After basically sending everything out to be mastered, I only cry in front of two people. One of them is her, and one of them is my mother. And it was one of those, like, I called her as I'm leaving the studio and was like, hey, so I just sent off everything to be mastered, like, it's all ready to go. And then I was like, a pause, and I sort of stared, and I was like, by the way, I just want you to know that I'm about to start crying. And I was like, so anyways, I feel like, and then just like it was like that kind of a thing. It was
happy cry was a sense of accomplishment.
No, yes, oh for sure. Yes. It was the pandemic for me, which, you know, isn't over, is it not over, who knows, it's so confusing, but it never really felt like for me that it was over until then, because that was the summation of everything that I had been working for throughout the whole time. And so it was like this weight came off my chest. And then when I talked to my mom about it, I mean, she was pretty much like, the way that she summed it up was, the way that you feel right now, regardless of how this lands or what anyone else might say, no one else will get to feel this way about it. The reward is in this, really. That's why you'll see people that work so hard for something and they break down, and it's like a strangely isolating feeling, but also like really good, because you're like, no one else can really understand, but they also don't get to feel this good about it.
Yeah.
Coming out. Yeah, so it was, I feel like I totally lost sight of the question though.
No, just talk about the process of the album and the releasing it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was segmented out. It was, here are some demos, ideas. A lot of the stuff that we worked through was, hey, here's an entire parted out song, and then you would be like, I have all the lyrics for this. There were probably only a couple songs that were actually collaborative, in the sense of we actually all were in a room together. Hey, I have an idea. Oh yeah, play this drum beat on it. Oh, we could do a guitar thing here and kind of go from that. Because we were so isolated, there was a lot more sending emails or phone recordings of ideas for things, and and I think that challenge did make it feel so much more
intimate, I guess.
Intimate and like exciting when we finished, because it challenged us all as individuals and our motivation, because we didn't know what was happening with the world. We didn't know if we put this album out, if we were going to be able to play shows when, and there was so much mystery. It challenged our relationship. It challenged like everything. I mean, we know it can be annoying to parents to say this, because I'm not saying it's the same thing at all. I had 4 little siblings, so I know kid world very well, but the only analogy I can think is like, it felt like it was our kid. Like everything that we did revolved around it. How we spent our money, because making a record is not cheap. How we spent our money when we slept, how we managed our relationship with each other, how we managed our health. Like how really,
much of our dates was really just
talking about the kid, the band.
Yeah.
So it all felt like it was unto this thing, and so having it be done was this very surreal, I think it's very similar to like the feeling of grief, but the positive of that, where you're like, it feels like this separating, but as opposed to how grief is very sad, it's a happier.
It's like sending your kid to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Or, to school. I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids, but, it's the best I can come up with.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you with it being like a child, because you got to nurture it. You're going to put love into it. You're going to nourish it. And then when you're ready to present it, such as your child graduate, when you're ready to present it, you're proud of it.
Yeah. And then you also got to let it go and let it find its own way. Yeah. And you can't, and that was kind of the cathartic release aspect, was like, I mean, I even when I was talking to like our engineer, the last day I was in the studio with him, was like, hey, like I almost kind of don't want this to be over, just because like I've seen you like 3 times a week for the past year. Like, it's like
therapeutic for you. It was something that you was looking forward to. It kept you from going having fever. Yeah. I mean, so that was an outlet for you. I mean, I understand that, because then it was like, it's like your favorite show come on in the season end, and it's like, well, what am I doing now?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Did we answer your question entirely?
I was going to say, you want to break down like why it's called Lorelai and like all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. I can do that. So the album is named Lorelai. It is, people ask me, and it's true, it's based off of the character from Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
So the reason for that is my best friend passed away about 2 years ago, and so the song on the album Lorelai I wrote about her, because we used to watch Gilmore Girls together in the hospital, and throughout, like, she was going through hospice care near the end of her life, and so we watched Gilmore Girls a lot, and I was always like, yeah, if she didn't have this like sickness that kind of kept her inside all the time. Like, she would be Lorelai. Like, she would be that character that just, like, took over the town and everybody knows her, and she's very loyal and fun and lovable. And so I wanted to name the album Lorelai to honor her memory, because she was definitely, like, she was a huge part of my life in encouraging me to believe in myself and believe in my dreams and make the record and keep doing what I'm doing.
Do you experience different emotions when you listen to it at different times?
Yeah, absolutely.
Certain songs probably more than others, if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, I think the songs on the album Lorelai and Until You're Better are both very specifically about her, and they're very challenging to listen to. I think sometimes I listen to them and I time travel in my mind and I feel like I'm with her, and I feel that, like, closeness but sadness. And then there are times when I listen to it and I feel a level of happiness that I was able to honor her in that way, and I feel like that she would be proud of me and that she would absolutely love it, and that feels very, like, redeeming to me.
Okay. I thank y'all for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any last words that you want to have? I want you to tell everybody where they can find your album at, your social media handles, how they can find you on social media, and if you have a YouTube page or anything like that.
Absolutely. We have our Instagram and TikTok handles are at the Vertigo Waves. You can also find us at thevertigowaves.com, where you can find all of our, sorry?
Spell it for them.
The Vertigo Waves, the VertigoWaves.com. That's where you can get all of our links to find our music on iTunes and Spotify. We're all over any streaming platforms that you may listen to. Belle and the Vertigo Waves is on YouTube. We have 3 music videos for the album that came out that you can watch on our YouTube channel. There was one more I was going to say.
Well, we're going to be releasing a 4th one video.
Yes, we will be releasing a 4th music video on our YouTube channel, so make sure you go subscribe to us there. It's okay. If you're listening and you want to book our band for a show, you can email us at booking.batvw@gmail.com, and maybe we can come to your city and play a show.
Yeah, that's kind of the next step for us, I think, is we did a record release show, we sold out, and it was like, oh, okay, people like music again, and also, like, that was obviously very cathartic, but a lot of people there, I was like, I don't know what to do now, and they were like, you need to start touring now. And so we've been putting ourselves out on blast everywhere, so yeah, if you're into us, hit us up, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y'all heard them, the Vertigo Waves, right?
Yep.
I got it right this time. Y'all can find us on all podcasting platforms. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook. Whenever I get around to it, I am going to upload to Twitch, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on the blog, www.blonde-intelligence.com. And remember to like, share, subscribe, and comments, because it is very important to the logarithms. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Yeah. You're welcome.